This is the second video in the series about conceptual modeling. Last time we were talking about ER modeling being a process where you define the components of the model, entities, attributes, and relationships, and as you go through the process, you continually refine that model. You may be making refinements because of new information, new requirements you've gathered, or just making refinements as you notice more details about how the data is related. So before I start talking about what are entities, I want to talk about different tools that you can use for drawing diagrams. So this ERD Plus is a tool that I just recently found. It's meant only for ER diagrams, so it's really easy to use. However, it's so single purpose that it doesn't have much flexibility for adding some of the extensions you might want, and also for arranging things to look better. It pretty much puts them where it wants to, and you don't have a choice. Then these two tools are really good, Draw.io and Lucidchart, and they're approximately the same in their features. Somehow Lucidchart is a little easier and better. However, it has a free education version and then a paid version, and sometimes you hit those limits and it keeps asking you to upgrade. Whereas Draw.io is completely free. And those give you more flexibility. You can add colors, you can add a lot of notes that help make your design diagram more readable. Finally, MySQL Workbench, which we will use in this class, has an ER modeling tool in it, but that tool just takes the ER model and automatically changes it into a relational model. So it's not really good for making a conceptual design that's independent of the logical design, because it creates a relational model. So you shouldn't use it for this kind of exercise that we're doing now. All right, so the first part of an ER model obviously is the entity. So entities, we use the word entity kind of a bit casually. Formally, you have something called an entity type, and it's like a class in object-oriented design speaking. It's a class and you have instances of that class. Those are the entities. So entities are instances of an entity type, but we can call it all just an entity to be simpler. So entities are things in your real-world system, and you can usually identify the entities in your model by them being nouns. And in almost all the diagram styles, an entity sits inside a rectangle. So let's think about our scenario and try to identify the entities from the requirements that we gathered. So I already drew clinic, so clinic is a noun, employees is a noun, doctor is a noun, appointment is a noun, patients is a noun, but there's some more nouns here. Specialist, administrator, nurse, cleaning staff, region, and medics. Those are all nouns too. Let's think about, are they entities in our model? So medics is the whole company. The whole data model is going to reflect the company and how it works. So the company itself is not part of that model. And this is a mistake that many novice designers will do. They will put the thing they're modeling inside their data model. That is not one of the entities. Region isn't a thing in our model. It just happens that this is a regional company. It could be a nationwide company. It could be a local company. We just said it's regional. That's more of an actual adjective describing the company. It's not part of the model. Another word here, specialist, I think is being used as a synonym for doctor. It's just another word for doctor. I don't think it's different than a doctor. But administrators, nurses, and cleaning staffs, they're types of employees. So, as doctors are also types of employees. So we'll think a little bit as we're going through our refinement process, whether those are entities or not. But definitely the entities we have, we can feel sure. Clinics are something in our system. Employees are in our system. Doctors, patients, and appointments are all key items in our system. So those are entities that we know about. So entities like classes, they have attributes or properties. In ER model, the properties of an entity or entity type are called attributes. The most simple attribute, called a simple attribute, is the type of attribute with only one value. So we can say this, right? Each instance of an entity type has a single value for a simple attribute. When you draw attributes in Chen notation, they look like this. They're in ovals, and the ovals are attached to the entity with a line. Now you can understand that this drawing style, this diagrammatic notation, can get a little busy if you have a lot of attributes, so if you have a lot of attributes, it's not such a great notation. And another style of notation, which is like in UML, you can put them all inside the rectangle of the entity instead. So if you have a really big ER model, this diagram notation can get totally out of hand, and you're going to want to come into this style of notation instead. So again, an attribute, and in particular simple attribute, is like this. So we can say the clinic entity type has the attributes, simple attributes, name and phone number. And we have two instances of this entity type, clinic. So clinic 1 has the name downtown and the phone number, this phone number. And entity 2 has the name Riverside Clinic and the phone number, this phone number. So simple attributes only have one value per instance. If one clinic had 2 phone numbers, then it wouldn't be a simple attribute. And in the next video, we'll talk more about different kinds of attributes that aren't simple.